All right, we have a 2008 EZGO TXT gas. This one here, the complaint is there's an intermittent issue. Well, it was described to me as an intermittent issue where the battery, I guess, is going dead when it sits or while they're driving it or something. They use the cart. After a certain amount of time goes by, they can use the cart again, and then after a certain amount of time goes by, they come back and the battery's dead. So what we're going to do is I'm going to check the charging system on it. We're also going to check the condition of the battery. The cart as it is right now, it does run and drive. So I did drive it in here. I drove it on and off the trailer. So we just got to kind of get into that. We're going to do an oil change and fuel filter as requested by the customer. Not really a full service, just that. Wow. That's not a good thing. Okay, so I will... Okay. So the only thing I did to this when I brought it in was I took the seat off to get the year and the serial number off the cart so I can put it into the computer. And yeah, okay, so that's all I've done. Look at this. Oh, that bracket down there is completely broken. All right, well, I mean, I'm going to mention this and see if they want me to do anything. Now, this hose here I would have to order. I don't have any. I don't even know if I can get that hose, but we'll see. All right, anyway, we're going to go with the original complaint, and we're going to only do the check and fix the original problem first, and then we'll change oil and filter and go from there. So the simplest test you can do to see if your charging system is working. Voltmeter. Any voltmeter will do. You don't need anything fancy, no special tools required. And you hook up your voltmeter to your battery. The black is positive, the braided cable is ground or negative. And we have 12.31 volts. Now what I'll do is I'll crank the engine over. I'll turn the key on first. Crank the engine over. 11.5. You see the voltage is dropping, not rapidly, but normally. Alright, as you can see, we have 14.4. Hopefully you can see that. The charging system's working, so there's another problem somewhere. Let me take this out of the way. Intermittent problems are the hardest to work on. They are the hardest to track down. So now I'm going to take my solar battery tester thing. I mean, these connections here are kind of smashed. I mean, the other thing is the battery's just flopping around in here. It's not anchored in. All right, this is saying 12.8. It's a 600 cold cranking amp CCA, so we're gonna just call it a 500. Oh, look at that. Once I do the load test and the thing just quit. Oh, well, okay. Just noticed something here. I don't know if you caught that. This is not tight. I'm kind of thinking now he's got an intermittent issue with things being tight. If that's the case, I'm going to replace these because they're all beat up and smashed, and we'll put new battery terminals on these so it'll hopefully eliminate the problem and will anchor the battery in correctly. All right, let's wiggle this around, make sure that's tight. Because the way this works is this wire is actually connected. It's a double wire per side, and it connects to both sides of this clamp. So if it doesn't see a connection on one side of the clamp, then it's going to say there's a battery cable error. I've found that out through experience. All right, battery test flooded, cold cranking amps 500, even though it's a 600, doesn't really matter. Above 32, testing. Bad and replace. So it's showing it only has 326 cold cranking amps. I don't know. Probably can't see that because this camera doesn't focus. This here is telling me that. I'm going to print that out. Oop, look at that. Got a double solar here. Bad and replace. It says state of charge is 100%, but the battery health is... Let's see, that's calling at 65%. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a charging system test. Now the thing with this, the system test, is golf carts don't really pull a lot of amps when they're starting the engine, unless the starter generator's on its way out or whatever. Oh, turn off loads. Oop, start engine. So let's see if it'll actually detect the engine start. Oh, it did. Sometimes it doesn't. All right. Cranking volts 11.7. Now it's going to do a charging system test. No loads are on. So 14.5 volts for idle volts. Now we got to turn loads on. Okay, turn the headlights on because that's the only load on the cart. Enter. Alright, so it detected the ripple. 1441 volts, 14.41. Alright, that's it. So in a car, this, you know, it's a lot easier to do this in a car, but I have to put my hand on the gas pedal here. So we can see all the different setting, or the things, so we'll, or the results rather, and the test that it did. So we'll print that out. And we'll keep this with the invoice. What I'll do is I'll change the oil. Let me see how this belt is here on the starter generator. It's a little loose. I mean, I could tighten it up. I mean, it's not loose to the point where it's, actually now looking at it, it is severely cracked. See if he wants to replace both of these belts. This one here is wore out too. I'm going to give them the option. This is what I'm seeing under the seat as I go through things. If I tighten the starter generator belt, there's a good chance it could snap, so I'm going to offer to change that, give them a price. If not, I might just leave it where it is because it is tight enough where it's not slipping. When it starts the cart, it does crank over quick. I'm going to bring up this problem here. That bracket needs to be taken off and welded. The intake hose is completely shot. So these are the problems that I'm seeing just looking at the cart. But I'm not going to fix any of this unless the customer wants that. They didn't say, go ahead and spend all this money and fix my car, fix everything that's broke. We're just addressing the original issues first. And then we'll go from there. I know I get a lot of questions on that. So that's, why didn't you fix this? Why didn't you fix that? It's like, well, if the customer's not going to pay me to do it, or they don't want me to do it, I'm not going to do something that's not going to pay. Because, you know, I am a for-profit business. All right, so I have not yet talked to the customer. I just, I did change the fuel filter. I don't know if you can tell it's new over there. Got today's date on it. What I am going to do is, I'm not going to touch these clamps just yet. I am going to, this is actually a reverse terminal. Yeah, it's an R. R on it, when you see like a group 26 R, that's a reverse terminal. Normally, negative, if the battery was this side, negative terminal would be here, positive would be here. But this battery being reversed, if I flip it around, positive will be here, negative will be here. Does it matter? Not really. Not on the cart like this where there's, there we go, where there's plenty of wire either way. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the battery hold down bracket off and installing it. I will see if this customer wants me to put him up with the new battery, or if he's gonna do that himself. Boy, it is muggy as hell today. This way the battery's not nice and tight, not flopping around in there. So we've done the fuel filter. We're going to do the oil now. Let's do this. Here, you know what? Let's move you over here. I'm going to pull the dipstick. This is an MCI engine. And you can see somebody's already removed the anti-tamper on me things. Alright, so the oil's a little gnarly. Let's see how full it actually is. I'm going to go around the other side. See what I'm doing, and me to see what I'm doing, but I'm not going to see what you can see. Alright, so the oil's low. It's not terribly low, but it is low. It needs to be changed. It's due. So let's go down bottom and use the comment generator. One thing I just wanted to point out, so you could see some of these EZGOs actually have multiple places where you can find your serial number. I need to figure out something different for lighting situations here. Alright, you guys should be able to see something. Now I'm going to use the comment generator on my removing these bolts here. You know, a lot of people are like, don't use power tools. Well, I use power tools because I know how to use my power tools. Ooh, this is missing the... Might put a zip tie on that brake cable. It just tells me how... That's a little bit tighter than I'd like to see. Okay, there's that one. I have this impact driver set to the lowest possible setting, so that's why it might sound more aggressive than it actually is. Okay. And again, guys, you got to realize I wouldn't do anything on somebody else's cart that I wouldn't do on my own. Well, except abuse it. I mean, my own carts, I wouldn't have any... Ooh, that oil smells burnt. Really bad. Let that dribble out. That oil smells really burnt. O-ring looks good. Whew, that stinks. Wish you guys could smell that. That is terrible. It smells like, it almost smells like gear oil. I know it's not, but Jesus, it stinks. Alright, so I'm just going to tip the cart a little more. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get a better spot to grab onto here. And try to get as much of that shitty oil out there. Never get it out. I mean, you never get it all out. Even if you, I don't think this engine has it, but some of the pre-MCI engine, I believe, has a drain plug on the bottom of the engine that you can use if you want to take the skid plate off and all that stuff. I mean, that's a lot more work just to get to the oil drain plug. You would think the skid plate would have had a provision for a hole in it. I just want to wipe this off and make sure it's not ripped and flat. Nope, it's still raised. I can feel it above the metal. You don't always have to change that O-ring, guys. It's fine to reuse it. I've done it for years. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Oil filter, fuel filter here. Rather, oil filter. Jesus, I'll be right. A little bit of brake clean on it just to push some of the schmag out of it. Clean it off. Clean off that surface. Oh, lifted carts are so hard to work on. I can't lay down. I can't sit up. Off camera here, I'm just drying the thing off with a clean shop towel. See, nice and clean that is now. Use brake cleaner if you're going to clean this stuff. You don't want to be using carburetor cleaner because it'll eat the rubbers and make them expand and just cause you more grief. Brake cleaner is perfectly fine to use. I try to use the non-chlorinated stuff whenever possible because it's better for it. Alright, I got a little dab of fresh oil here. I'm gonna run around that O-ring. Now, if I felt that O-ring wasn't up to snuff, yes, I would change it. But you don't always have to. You know, they're meant to be reused. And then I'll put this in here like so. Yeah, see, I can feel it sticking to the O-ring, so I know it's good. And then I'll start these by hand. And then I'll run them in with the driver. I can tell that belt is wore the hell out. All right. We'll run them in until it stops, and then run it in until it stops. And then a couple of clicks. You don't have to go full throttle on your impact driver if you decide to use one. It's only going into aluminum. Right, and then we'll just kind of spritz it all off, clean it all up. Sometimes I clean these off before I take them apart. Sometimes I don't. It depends on how dirty they are, because if they're really, really dirty and manky and you spray it, you'll have all that crap running down into your engine. And you don't want to have that getting into the threads or the holes where these bolts go into. I've seen where some people have gotten stuff inside the hole before they put the bolt back and didn't know it was full of schmag and liquid. And that stuff doesn't compress, and then they end up stripping the hole out before they get the bolt all the way in, and they can't figure out what the hell happened. So I try not to wash them off unless I really, really need to before I take that filter housing off. All right, so I don't know if you can see whilst we're down here. Let me see if I can zoom you in a little bit here on this belt. See, I don't know if you can see the condition of that belt or not. Look at how, see how checked and cracked it is? So we'll, look at that big one up here, up top. I'm gonna bring this to his attention, see what he wants to do. That's all I can do. I can't force the guy to pay the money to change it, so. Alrighty, let's go dump some oil on this bad boy. I try to remember to do this. I don't always, and it's, you know, not imperative that you clean this off, but it's all loose dirt, so we'll just clean that valve cover off while we, ooh, it's crunchy. Crunchy. If you remove the dipstick before you dump oil in, it'll just glug right in, and you don't have to worry about it overflowing. See, I'm just going to pour it in as fast as it'll go in, and it'll drop down into the engine just as quick, if not faster. Now, if you already have the valve cover off and since you've done valve adjustments or whatever, and you dump the oil in at that time, that's probably your better bet, or your better chance of, lesser chance of making a mess, I should say. Because you're, instead of pouring into a tiny hole, you're pouring into a giant rectangle. Spot on. Spot on. Don't have to run the engine to check the oil level on these. I tell you what, these oil caps are getting really hard to find. As I showed you in the test results for the battery, that it needs to be replaced. Customer wants me to go ahead and change the battery out. So I'll get a battery ordered. We could probably have that done today. He does want to do the starter generator and drive belts. So I have a starter generator belt, but I don't have any drives. So I have them ordered. He does want to change out this. We are going to adjust the brakes because the brakes basically don't stop. Okay, just making sure that wheel was tight. We are not going to address the turn signals that doesn't work and the horn, but the lights work. So that's all he really cares about. He wants it reliable, and he's probably only going to have it like another year or so. So that's what he says. So we are going to just replace and fix the essentials on this thing to make it work like it's supposed to. But again, he appreciates that I went through the entire cart, got a list of everything that it needs. Does not want to fix this stuff here. We're just going to leave it alone for now. So what I'll end up doing, just to make it a little bit stronger, is I will tighten up this bolt here. And once I put the new air hose on, that's probably going to, that should help stiffen this up. I mean, I can't really see it not doing so, but those are the things that we're going to check on here. All right, let's put a battery and new terminals in here. I wonder if yeah, see how this this here sucks. I'm not even going to take these terminals off this battery. I'm just going to loosen these wing ding nuts up. I hate these, if I'm being perfectly honest. And the only reason I hate them is because when this stud gets all corroded, if you don't put battery terminal protectant on it, it becomes a real pain in the ass to take loose. I guess I probably should have asked him if he wanted a battery before I went through all of the steps of tying this thing in. Okay. Yeah. Okay, new battery goes in. Now, see, this is not a 26R. This is a 26, positive, negative. Not much of a difference, just the battery terminals themselves are reversed. That only really matters like in your cars that have very short wires where your assembly comes straight up and you have like 3 centimeters of wiggle room. But in a situation like this, where, you know, you could basically put the battery over here somewhere, not literally, but figuratively, you are good to go. Okay, so let's tuck the power wires back there for that. Here's our negative, here's our positive. What we're going to do, let's do our positive first. We're going to also replace these. First things though, I really would like to clean these cables first. That's the right way to do it. Tripping over my pads here. See, isn't that much nicer? This will be great because then the only thing I have to order are belts. I'll kind of straighten this out here. This is a little funky dunky. Okay. They're strong still. I just wanted to straighten them out because they were a little wonky. There we go. Battery clamps with the non-captive nut. You know what I want to do? I know it's a new battery, but thought it broke. Didn't. That's better. Much better. I like that a lot now. Frickin' air compressor is loud. I think I might locate that thing into a different airspace. I will run a zip tie down here with all these wires to kind of keep that starter generator cable back out of the way. I don't like the idea of it being out there willy-nilly. And then I shall tighten these down. The negative side's not hooked up yet, so... Oh, gotta loosen this. So I can rotate this. But see, this is great, because this will put this cart closer to being done. All I gotta do now is just wait for the drive belt. I'm gonna take the drive belt off while I'm standing here. Throw it on the ground. So now I could change the starter generator belt. This cart will probably end up back in my shop with the new owner at some point in its life, I'm sure. I have, so far I've seen quite a few carts that have changed owners, and they have come through my shop with the new owner wanting to do work to it that the previous owner didn't want to do. This one is being stubborn here. I wonder if it's going to go back together. It should. Oh, I see. Hopefully you can see what the heck I'm doing. Can't see nothing. There we go. I do have the fan running in the background because it is, again, hot. You know, my hand's in the way. I could probably do this. Jeez, what's wrong with me? I have a whole bunch of lights that I put up on the ceiling in a big long row, hoping that it'll help with the lighting in here. I may put, whenever I get around to, you know, actually finishing the shop work out here, I might actually put a couple of them on the wall, so that way the whole cart bay is nice and lit up. That's still spinning on me. I'll tighten it a little more. Okay. And then, like I said, I'll zip tie these. There we go. Okay. You don't want to over tighten those because you will break those tabs off, especially these Chinese items. Alright, let's zip tie this. Actually, you know what I want to do before I do anything else? I'm going to zip tie this brake cable on a separate zip tie. Okay, that'll keep that from hitting anything. And then I'll zip tie all these together down here. Not using the ginormous ones that you usually see on here. That's just to kind of keep things cleaned up. Because when stuff is neat, like wiring is neat and somewhat tidy, whether it's me or somebody else that's working on this cart in the future, it'll just make it that much easier and nicer for that person. And again, it might not be me and it might be me, you never know. And if it's me, I'm going to be more aggravated with myself because why I didn't do it right in the first time, I don't know. This stuff stinks. And then what I like to do is I like to spray that mounting bolt down there so that way I don't have to worry about it. So the battery's in, we got all the terminals done, covered and protected. Let's attempt to put the date on it for a third time. Alright, so we have 6/21/24. Okay. That's the date of install. We could do the starter generator belt. Oh, do I dare. So it's only being held on by a thread. I don't think I'm going to touch this. I don't think you guys are going to be able to see what I'm doing here. I have to say, guys, I've been using this Insta360 camera, this Ace Pro, or whatever it's called. Turn that freaking cart off, dummy. And it has been working very, very well in this heat. The audio, from what you guys have said in the past couple of videos, says it sounds good. Oh, and I just smeared battery terminal protectant all the hell over me. It's alright. It's just gross. Alright. And I've been running this thing non-stop. The batteries are getting like extraordinarily hot. Okay, I'm gonna have to loosen the bolt up. But I have yet to see the camera shut down because it overheated. I think these are 3/4. Yeah, 3/4 inch on the starter generator pivot bolt. All I need to do is loosen it. I don't need to take it off. There we go. There we go. Okay, loosen it just enough so it moves. That's a good thing. I really am glad to see that this cart is like things are actually coming apart easily and like they're supposed to. Alright, let me see if I can show you this belt. Look at that. Terrible. I'm going to put it in the back here so he can see it. I don't have very many Red Hawk parts left. Thank God. So what I do is I put it on the starter generator pulley first, and then I'll put it on the engine, and then that way I can grab the... Oh, this is really tight. Okay, let's see if I can loosen that up a little more. Thought I had it all the way loose, but I guess not. So the two jam nuts on the starter generator are 9/16. 14 millimeter is a little too tight. I don't think the 14 millimeter will... I mean, you can use it if you need to, and it does work. I've used it in the past. But the true size of these nuts is 9/16. Oh, there we go. Guess if I lift up on it, here we go. Now it should just roll right on. Yeah, here we go. Kinda. Come on, you. There, okay. Whoop, look at that, now it's rolling. There we go. Okay, and it's already adjusted tight, perfect. I'm just gonna tighten up the jam nut here. Okay, belt is tight. 9/16. Now I gotta try to do this without getting red sauce all over me. There we go. Okay, jammed. And you don't have to rank those down really too tight either. You just don't want them to become loose when the cart is running, that's all. Alright, so now I will tighten up this nut on the back of the pivot bolt. There we go, that's tight. So I have these shallow, narrow, thin wall sockets for taking wheels off of carts like this. My thin wall impact sockets I have are okay. Let's see if we can... Ooh, I got you mounted to a gas can. And I forgot on the Ace Pro camera here that I can flip the screen up so I can see what I'm doing. Completely forgot I could do that. Not used to having a camera that has a flippy screen on it, except for my GH5, which I don't use my GH5 for this anymore, just because of the cumbersomeness of it. Alright. So what I do is kind of do this a non-conventional way here. What you really need to be able to do... Oh, I opened the wrong clamp. Stand by. Technical difficulties. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so this system in these is actually not too shabby. Ooh. What you got to look for is a little wheel in there with some teeth. It's called the star wheel. Now what I'll do is I'll take a mallet and I'll bang on the drum with it. You can see how, practically the drum spins so freely. It takes a little effort at all. What I like to do is get the drum tight. I'm going to have to hold the drum here while I crank on the wheel. EZGOs have their drum is their hub as well. Kind of a dumb way to do it, but I wish I could show you what's in here, but it's really, really difficult. I'm having a hard time seeing it. But there's a little star wheel in here that is theoretically supposed to self-adjust the brakes. Every time you step on the pedal, it moves a little arm that's in there, and it's supposed to crank that star wheel. They don't always work. Okay, so now that's really tight. So what I do is after I tighten that up, I'll take the drum or the mallet. Let me slide you back so I don't hit you, because I got to swing on this. And I like to hit the drum, right? Make sure the cable's loose. See how the drum's now moving, but it's tight? This to me is adjusted. Because this way, this will kind of get the shoes to sit where they belong. Not really worrying about hurting the drum. But that's why I make them tight, so I don't have to adjust that anymore. So now that brake pedal should grab a lot better. It's going to be really hard to press to lock, but that's what you want. You want the brake pedal to actually work and do something. You don't want it to be so loose that, like, when you step on it, it goes to the floor and it locks, but the cart's still kind of rolling and you hear the brakes squeaking a little bit. That's not fun. It's not safe either. I think I kind of jumped around a little bit on that one. But anyway, there's a little star wheel in there. And the idea is when you step on the brake pedal, there's a little lever. Okay, so the star wheel is like this with little teeth on it that only catch one way. So when you step on the pedal, the lever moves and is supposed to catch on those little teeth on the star wheel and rotate it and expand out the bottom of the drums, or the shoes rather. And what that does is it self-adjusts, theoretically, the brake shoes out closer to the drum. And it only goes a certain distance when it's adjusting out. But a lot of times they get all crudded up and don't ever really work. I've never really seen them work ever, so I don't ever really rely on them. I guess sometimes some of them are designed that when you step on reverse, when you're going in reverse and step on the brake pedal, that's when they're designed to adjust, but I don't know. I don't know how true that is. I just never really thought these adjusted right. But I tell you what, I prefer drum brakes over those stupid electric brakes the electric EZGOs use. Here, Facebook Messenger. Ding-a-ling. I've been trying to sell a side crank 12,000 pound jack, landing gear basically off the dump trailer. And I'll tell you what, marketplace is terrible to try to sell something on. Yeah, see how that spins? That's just way too loose. Now the thing with the EZGO drums, because they're also the hub assembly, the splines on the drive shaft, the axle shaft, are very hard, and the splines that are inside the drum are very soft. So if this nut is not torqued right, what happens is the brake drum starts to wobble, and it actually will round out the splines on the drum, causing you to have to replace the drum now. in all reality, it's not a bad thing because at least the drum fails and not the axle shaft, so you don't have to really get into tearing the other stuff apart to replace an axle shaft. It's just the brake drum. But the thing that sucks about it is you can't pull the drum off to inspect the brakes without doing all of that, that's kind of why I don't like this type of setup. But I can feel, I don't know how to really portray it on the camera, but I can feel, you can actually see too, inside the hole. The brake pads that are in here look new. And also what I look at is how far out, there's a little pin that's threaded into that star wheel, and when you tighten the star wheel, it pushes the pin out, and it's only out like not even that much. I think it'll go out a maximum of that, and that's usually bottomed out on the steel. So the pads would be rubbing steel to steel, basically, or steel to cast iron, however you want to look at it. Yeah, not even. I know, guys. This field of view of this camera is wide. It's an action camera. It's not really. I don't want to say it's not great for this because it actually is. It's really hard to. I can't see what I'm doing. I can't tell if I'm on the star wheel. Yeah, now I am. Hear that clicking? That's the star wheel riding past that lever I was telling you about. That lever is part of the braking spring thing. Yeah, see, now I got it tight, so it's... A lot of times what'll happen when I do that is it will... I don't want to say it'll bind up, but it will... it'll loosen up after I hit it, like a lot. When I do get it loose, I just keep turning that star wheel one click at a time, but I usually just make them tight and then hit it a couple of times with a rubber mallet. And if I can turn the drum by hand with a bit of drag, I know that when I put the wheel back on and hit the brake pedal, it'll work like it's supposed to. In my experience, that's how it's worked. That's how I'm going to continue to do it. Until it doesn't work like that anymore. The only thing I don't like about this thin wall socket is I need another socket to run it because I don't have a 3/8 drive adapter that'll fit in there. Yeah, see, I can still turn it. It's stiff, but it's good. Okay. Brakes are done. All right, so basically this cart is now done up to the point as far as I can go until I get the belts. All right, guys, I think I'm going to close the video out here because, I mean, just putting a belt on is not very exciting. You know, it's drive belts. They just roll on with everything else. So that's going to be it for this one. Let me know down in the comments what you think. If you have any questions or whatever, just, leave it down there. If not, make sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you're already not, and we'll see you in the next one.